I'm Johnny Dormney, and today I'll perform Flying Through the Fog, the turning point of safe aviation. On September 24th, 1929, Jimmy Doolittle became the first pilot to take off and land completely on instruments, revolutionizing flight. Crashes were the leading cause of death for early aviators when fog or other bad weather prevented the pilot from landing safely. However, Doolittle's blinded, instrument-only flight marked the turning point for safe aviation. This turning point propelled aviation into a means of secure and reliable transportation. Let's join Jimmy Doolittle on September 23rd, 1929, speaking with philanthropist and president of the Guggenheim Foundation, Harry Guggenheim. Hello, Mr. Guggenheim. You want to hear the progress of the Blind Flight Project? Well, since my crash in March, everything's been uphill. Yes, I know the irony of the pilot for the Blind Flight Project crashing in fog. But it is a powerful reminder of why the Guggenheim Fund is sponsoring this project. That morning, I checked the weather forecast, and it showed that everything would be clear. However, just a few hours later, and once I was precariously low on gas, every airfield around was covered in fog, and I was forced to crash land in New Jersey. It's true, fog covering the runway on final approach is incredibly dangerous, but that isn't half the danger fog presents. Flight-induced vertigo is an even greater problem. When that happens, a pilot can't tell if they're turning left or right. They think they're climbing, but they're really diving. This is when many pilots die. They think they can handle flying in fog or other bad weather, get lost, panic, or run out of fuel like I did, and end up with a wing wrapped around a tree. I got lucky and did not suffer a scratch, but most other pilots don't have my luck. This all goes to show what Charles Lindbergh has said before, that flight will never amount to much unless we can fly in bad weather. Take the example of a commercial airline that tries to serve passengers. If they were to fly in all weather, they'd have planes crashing and passengers dying left and right. But if instead they were to delay for every storm, they would not be able to guarantee service and nobody would fly with them. We've worked on these very issues and made monumental improvements in cockpit instrumentation. Right now, our best instruments are mounted in the test plane. The hood is ready to cover the cockpit, and all we're waiting for is a thick enough fog bank to prove to the world that the future of aviation is safe. Despite the potential to revolutionize everything from travel to war, aviation was considered too dangerous for major investment in the early 1920s. However, Doolittle's blind flight changed that. Let's join Harry Guggenheim, president of the Guggenheim Foundation, on September 25th, 1929, at a press conference on Mitchell Field, speaking about Doolittle's flight and the future of aviation. Man's greatest enemy in the air, fog, was conquered. That was the New York Times headline this morning in reference to yesterday's flight by Doolittle. This all started back in 1926 when my father, Daniel Guggenheim, donated $2.5 million to create the Guggenheim Fund for the promotion of aeronautics. While we've worked on many projects, our most important experiment is the blind flight. We determined that safety is the main thing holding back aviation. There is no shortage of brilliant pilots and engineers. But if the pilot dies or the prototype is destroyed, the project is likely to be abandoned. For this reason, we decided to tackle the largest problem every pilot faces. That of how do you land when you cannot see the runway? And that is quite a daunting problem to solve. The first thing we had to do was fix the altimeter. Right now, every plane in the world uses a regular altimeter that measures altitude above sea level, which is borderline useless for a pilot who needs to know how high above the runway he is. So Doolittle's team created a new altimeter that measures height above a known object, which is a huge improvement over what is currently in use. Next, we had to figure out how to get Doolittle back to the airfield and onto the ground after he took off. To do this, we used a radio direction finder in the plane and set up radio beacons on the runway. The first beacon would guide Doolittle back to the runway, and then the second beacon would guide Doolittle facing the right direction between the lines and onto the ground. After that, we also added a bank indicator so that Doolittle could know how much he was turning and land on both front wheels at the same time so it wouldn't crack up. We also added a hood over the cockpit to make sure Doolittle wasn't peeking out when he wasn't supposed to. And then Doolittle flew. While the flight only lasted about 15 minutes, it will be known as the turning point of safe aviation. No longer will aviation be under the foggy control of the weather thanks to this flight. We have proven that if an airfield and pilot are properly equipped, nothing can stop aviation. This will allow commercial airlines to serve passengers, not just fly the mail. And these airlines will be able to promise service, guarantee it, even at night and in bad weather. The age of aviation is close at hand, and it will be defined by safe aviation thanks to Doolittle's flight. What Doolittle and the Guggenheims had achieved was nothing short of revolutionary, and that was the problem. Because of the significance of the advancements made in cockpit instrumentation, it took years before the aviation world caught up. While few doubted the significance of Doolittle's flight, many would still die in fog before the full implementation of instrument flight. Let's join Eddie Rickenbacker, famous World War I pilot and longtime leader of Eastern Airlines, in 1949. You want to know the legacy of Doolittle's blind flight? It was the turning point that made aviation safe. Thanks to Doolittle's flight, commercial aviation is possible and profitable, allowing anything to be transported faster than ever before. People discount the modern ability to fly from one side of the nation to the other in less than a day, forgetting that just 2 decades ago, it took a week-long train ride to do the same. Not only does this allow people to move faster, it also allows goods to reach new markets. The possibilities allowed by commercial aviation are only possible thanks to Doolittle's 1929 flight, just 20 years ago. Now, Doolittle's flight did not immediately end all weather-related accidents. It took time before the full implementation of instrument flight, both because the instruments needed refining and because pilots of my era were trained to distrust our instruments. The best example of this is the airmail crisis of 1934, where the federal government canceled all commercial airmail contracts and told the Army Air Corps to fly the mail. Due to lack of funding, Army pilots were untrained in the necessary night flying, and their planes lacked modern instruments. Before the airmail contracts returned to the airlines, less than a month later, 13 Army pilots died. Not fighting an enemy, but flying the mail. If these pilots had been properly trained and their planes properly equipped, they would have been fine. But that is the story of many technological turning points. They have the immediate, demonstrated potential to save lives, but their implementation takes time. Today, all the technological innovations from Doolittle's flight have been implemented and improved, allowing commercial airlines to thrive. My own Eastern Airlines has become the most profitable airline in the nation, only because we offer safe and on-time service even at night and in bad weather. Once instrumentation was perfected, we took advantage of the technological advances so air travel could become a tremendous part of the everyday lives of our customers. Even though it took years for implementation, Doolittle's blind flight, which he himself considered his greatest achievement, was the turning point that allowed safe aviation to take flight. Thank you.